The council chamber was quiet when the message arrived. Velthar, the council leader, looked at the screen with confusion. His reptilian eyes blinked slowly as he read the words again. Someone claiming to be human wanted to return to the galaxy. Humans? Velthar laughed. The sound echoed through the massive hall. Other council members turned to look at him. The humans were exiled 800,000 years ago. They are probably extinct by now. Around the circular table, representatives from dozens of alien species murmured to each other. Most of them had never heard of humans. The exile happened so long ago that it had become a footnote in history. A warning tale about species that refused to follow council rules. Councillor Thexil, an insect-like being with ancient memories, clicked his mandibles together. "I remember the records," he said quietly. "They were primitive, aggressive, they fought over everything. The council decided they were too dangerous to remain." "Exactly," Velthar said, waving one clawed hand dismissively. "They probably destroyed themselves within a few thousand years. This message is either a joke or a mistake." But the message kept repeating. It came from the outer rim of known space, from a region where no one traveled anymore. The signal was strong and clear. Whoever sent it had powerful technology. "Should we respond?" asked another counselor. Velthar was about to say no when every screen in the chamber suddenly lit up. A new alert flashed in bright red letters. A ship had just appeared at the edge of council space. It hadn't used any known travel method. One moment the space was empty. The next moment the ship was there. "That's impossible," someone whispered. The ship was massive, larger than anything in the council fleet. Its design was strange, smooth, and organic looking, as if it had been grown rather than built. The scanners couldn't read its hull properly. The materials didn't match anything in the galactic database. Velthar felt a cold sensation run down his spine. He tried to hide his nervousness. "Send them a warning. They entered council space without permission. They must leave immediately or face consequences." The message was sent. The response came back in seconds. "This is Ambassador Hyunwoo of the Human Federation. We request an audience with the Galactic Council. We will wait here for your response. We mean no harm, but we will not leave." The voice was calm, too calm. It made Velthar uncomfortable. He looked around at the other council members. Some looked curious. Others looked worried. No one refused an order from the council. No one had done that in thousands of years. "What should we do?" Thexil asked. Velthar thought for a long moment. They could send the fleet, but something told him that would be a mistake. This ship appeared from nowhere. What other tricks did these humans have? "Grant them an audience," Velthar finally said. "Let them come. We will see what these humans have become. If they survived at all, they are probably desperate. They will beg to rejoin us. We can set whatever terms we want." 3 days later, a small shuttle detached from the massive ship and approached the council station. When it landed, the council members gathered to watch. They expected to see primitive beings in old spacesuits, grateful to be noticed by the great Galactic Council. The airlock opened. 2 humans stepped out. They wore simple clothes that seemed to shift colors slightly in the light. No spacesuits, no breathing equipment. They walked with confidence, looking around the station with interest but not awe. The woman was tall with sharp eyes. The man was shorter but carried himself like someone who had seen everything and feared nothing. "I am Ambassador Hyunwoo," the man said, bowing slightly. "This is Historian Nari. We thank you for seeing us." Velthar studied them carefully. They looked human, according to the old records. 2 arms, 2 legs, smooth skin. But something was different. The way they moved was too graceful. The way they looked at things was too focused. Their eyes held an intelligence that made him uncomfortable. "You are far from home," Velthar said, trying to sound authoritative. "If you even have a home anymore. The council exiled your species for good reason. Why have you returned?" Nari smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret. "We haven't returned," she said softly. "We never left. We've been here all along. You just didn't notice us. And now we think it's time you knew the truth about what happened after you cast us out." The council chamber suddenly felt very cold. Thexil moved through the ancient archives alone. His many legs clicked softly on the metal floor as he searched through data that hadn't been accessed in centuries. The council wanted to know everything about the human exile before they made any decisions. He found the files buried deep in the system. Reports from 800,000 years ago, written in old languages that the computer had to translate. Thexel had been young when it happened, barely old enough to remember. But he remembered the fear. The reports painted humans as violent and unpredictable. They refused to accept their place in the galactic order. They questioned everything. They wanted rights for all species, not just the powerful ones. They spoke about freedom and choice in ways that made the Council uncomfortable. They were dangerous, one report concluded, not because they were strong, but because their ideas could spread. Exile is the only solution. They must be removed before they corrupt other species. Thexil read through more files. Battle reports showed human ships fighting Council forces. The humans lost every battle. Their technology was inferior. Their weapons were weak. But they never surrendered. Even when defeat was certain, they fought. The final report described the exile. Human ships, damaged and failing, were forced to the outer rim. The Council watched them disappear into unknown space. Everyone assumed they would die there. The report's last line was cold. Problem solved. Humans will not trouble the galaxy again. Thexil's antennae twitched with worry. He sent the files to the Council, but he also sent a private message to Velthar. We should have made sure they were destroyed. Exile was a mistake. Meanwhile, on the human ship Endurance, Captain Do Yun stood on the bridge and watched the Council station through the view screen. His crew worked quietly around him. They had traveled far to reach this place. Not in distance, but in time and purpose. Sir, the Council has invited you to tour their military headquarters, his communications officer reported. They say it's a courtesy. Do Hyun almost laughed. A courtesy. They wanted to show him their power. They wanted to intimidate him. Accept the invitation, he said. Let's see what they're so proud of. The tour was meant to impress. Council officers walked Do Hyun through their shipyards, their weapons facilities, their command centers. They showed him their largest warships, vessels that could destroy planets. They demonstrated weapons that could tear through any known armor. Do Hyun watched it all with polite interest. He asked questions. He nodded at appropriate times. But his eyes saw everything they didn't mean to show him. He saw outdated technology. He saw systems that hadn't been updated in millennia. He saw a military that had grown lazy from having no real enemies. Impressive, he said when the tour ended. The word was empty of real meaning. The Council officer escorted him to a meeting room where Ambassador Hyunwoo and historian Nari were waiting. Another human had joined them. A woman named Jisoo, who carried old books and data tablets. Did they show you their best ships? Hyunwoo asked with a slight smile. They did, Do Hyun replied. I counted 47 critical weaknesses in their primary battlecruiser design alone. Jisoo placed her materials on the table. The Council has released their historical records about our exile. I've reviewed them. As expected, they left out important details. Velthar and several other Council members entered the room. They sat down across from the humans with confident expressions. Thexil followed behind them, looking more nervous than the others. We have reviewed the historical records, Velthar announced. They are clear. Humans were exiled for refusing to follow galactic law, for violence, for chaos. If you want to return, you must acknowledge these facts and accept responsibility. Nari opened one of Jisoo's data files. An image appeared in the air between them. It showed a human colony ship burning in space. Bodies floated in the void. This is what your exile looked like, Nari said quietly. That's the colony ship New Hope. Council forces destroyed it as it tried to escape. 5,000 humans died, including 2,000 children. The crime? They asked for the same voting rights as other species. Velthar shifted uncomfortably. That's not in our records. No, Jisoo said. It wouldn't be. Just like your records don't mention the peace treaty humans offered 3 times. Just like they don't mention that the Council attacked first when humans established their own independent colonies. Just like they don't mention that the violence you punished us for was self-defense. More images appeared. Each one showed a different truth than the official history. Council ships attacking human settlements, human refugees begging for mercy, peaceful human ambassadors being arrested and executed. Thexil looked at the images and his mandibles clicked rapidly. I remember now, he said slowly. I was there. I was young, but I remember. They didn't tell us these things happened. They said humans were monsters. We were inconvenient, Hyunwoo said. Not monsters. We asked questions that the Council didn't want to answer. We suggested that maybe the powerful shouldn't control everything. That made us dangerous. Belthar's scales had turned a darker shade. Even if that's true, it was 800,000 years ago. What does it matter now? Do-hyun stood up. He walked to the window and looked out at the council station. It matters because you haven't changed. This station, your ships, your systems, everything is almost identical to 800,000 years ago. You stopped growing. You stopped innovating. You became comfortable. He turned back to face them. We didn't have that luxury. You threw us into the darkness with broken ships and no hope. We had to adapt or die, and we chose to adapt. Every single day for 800,000 years, we chose to survive and grow. What are you saying? Belthar asked, his voice shaking slightly. Hyunwoo smiled that same cold smile from before. We're saying that exile was the greatest gift you ever gave us. And your greatest mistake. Admiral Velcron didn't trust the humans. He had listened to their claims about survival and growth, but words were easy. He demanded proof. If humans wanted respect, they needed to show what they could really do. We will conduct tests, Velcron announced in the council chamber. Scientific tests, engineering tests, military exercises. If you pass, we will consider your request to rejoin the galactic community. Hyunwoo looked at Nari, then back at the Admiral. We accept your tests. When do we begin? Immediately, Velcron said with satisfaction. He thought he was being clever. Surprise tests would reveal the truth about human capabilities. They couldn't fake their way through real challenges. The first test took place in the Council's primary research facility. Dr. Yoonji, a human physicist, stood before a room full of the galaxy's greatest scientists. She was small and quiet, wearing the same color-shifting clothes all humans seem to favor. Explain your faster-than-light travel, demanded the head council scientist, a being made entirely of crystalline structures. Our sensors detected your arrival, but the method was unknown. Show us your technology. Yoonji smiled and pulled out a small device. She touched it and a three-dimensional image appeared in the air. It showed equations and diagrams that made no sense to anyone watching. You travel through subspace, Yoonji said simply. You go around normal space. We don't do that anymore. We go through it. We fold space itself. Impossible, the crystal scientist said. The energy required would destroy any ship. Only if you generate the energy, Yoonji replied. We don't generate it. We borrow it from the universe and return it when we're done. The universe has infinite energy if you know how to ask politely. She touched her device again. The small object in her hand began to glow. Then it disappeared. A moment later, it reappeared on the other side of the room. That's teleportation, someone whispered. That's understanding physics better than you do, Yoonji corrected. You've been using the same science for hundreds of thousands of years. We've been learning new science because we had to. Your textbooks describe what you know. Our textbooks describe what's possible. The scientists tried to ask more questions, but Yoonji's answers only confused them more. She spoke about dimensions they didn't know existed, forces they had never measured, and possibilities they had never imagined. The second test involved engineering. A council ship had been damaged in an accident years ago. The best engineers declared it beyond repair. They brought it to engineer Tae-hyun as a challenge. Tae-hyun was a quiet man who looked at the broken ship for exactly 3 minutes. Then he pulled tools from his belt that seemed too simple to fix anything. He walked around the ship once, touching different parts of the hull. Each place he touched began to glow slightly. What are you doing? The chief council engineer asked. Talking to it, Tae-hyun said absently. The ship remembers what it used to be. I'm just helping it remember better. That made no sense. Ships didn't remember anything. They were metal and circuits and nothing more. But as Tae-hyun worked, the damaged sections began to repair themselves. Metal flowed like liquid, reforming into perfect shapes. Broken circuits reconnected. Systems that had been dead for years suddenly activated. 20 minutes later, the ship was perfect. Better than perfect. It was more efficient than when it was first built. The chief engineer stared in disbelief. How? Your technology fights against the universe, Tae-hyun explained. Our technology works with it. Everything wants to be complete and functional. We just help it achieve that natural state. The third test was military. Velcron insisted on this one personally. He wanted to see human ships in combat. He set up a simulation with 5 council warships against 1 human vessel. Captain Do-hyun agreed to the exercise. His ship, the Endurance, faced off against the council fleet in an empty region of space. Sensors from the council station watched everything. Begin, Velcron commanded. The Council ships moved in formation, a tactic proven effective over countless battles. They fired weapons that could level cities. Their shields activated, each one strong enough to withstand tremendous force. The Endurance didn't move. It simply sat there in space as the weapons fire approached. At the last moment, the weapons curved away, missing the ship entirely. They didn't hit shields. They just missed. What happened? Velcron demanded. The human ship bent space around itself, a sensor operator reported nervously. The weapons are still traveling in straight lines, but straight lines aren't straight near that ship anymore. The Council ships tried different tactics. They surrounded the Endurance. They fired simultaneously from all directions. They attempted boarding actions. Nothing worked. The human ship moved through space in ways that shouldn't be possible. It appeared in multiple places at once. It passed through solid objects. It existed and didn't exist at the same time. Not a single weapon touched it. And the Endurance never fired back. It didn't need to. After an hour, Velcron called off the exercise. He had seen enough. The final demonstration came from an unexpected source. A human named Una, who introduced herself as a philosopher, requested to speak to the Council. They almost refused, but curiosity won over caution. Una stood before them and spoke calmly. You've seen our technology. Now understand what drives it. 800,000 years ago, humans lived maybe 100 years. Today we live thousands. We've expanded our minds to share thoughts across vast distances. We've learned to heal any injury. We've touched the basic fabric of reality itself. You've become something else, Thexel said quietly. Not human anymore? We're still human, Una corrected. But we're human version 8000. You're still the same species you were 800,000 years ago. We've evolved. We've had to, and we did it because you forced us to face extinction. Velcron slammed his hand on the table. This proves nothing. You show off your tricks, but what? Una interrupted. Her voice wasn't loud, but everyone fell silent. You asked for proof, we gave it. You're not angry because we failed your tests. You're angry because we passed them too easily. You're angry because you realize that while you stayed comfortable and safe, we became something you can't understand or control. She looked around the room at each council member. The real question isn't whether we're advanced enough to rejoin you. The question is whether you're advanced enough to join us. The council chamber was completely silent. Velcron stared at the human woman, his face frozen in an expression somewhere between rage and fear. The council requested to see a human colony ship. They wanted to understand how humans survived the early years of exile. Ambassador Hyunwoo agreed and invited them to tour the Remembrance, a vessel kept in orbit as a memorial. When the council delegation boarded, they expected to see an ancient, primitive ship. Instead, they found something that looked like a museum combined with a living memorial. The ship was old but perfectly preserved. Humans walked its corridors with quiet reverence. This ship carried 50,000 people into exile, a guide explained. Only 3,000 survived the first year. Velthar walked through the corridors and saw names carved into the walls. Thousands upon thousands of names. What are these? He asked. Every human who died on this ship, the guide said. We remember them all. We remember everyone we lost because of the exile. They were led to a large chamber where an old woman sat waiting. She looked ancient with white hair and lined skin, but her eyes were clear and sharp. This was Elder Sumi, and the council had been told she was one of the last humans alive who remembered Earth before the exile. Please sit, Sumi said, her voice surprisingly strong. The council members found seats around her. You want to know what the exile cost us? I will tell you. She began to speak, and her words painted pictures that made several council members look away in discomfort. I was 12 when the council forces came. They destroyed our orbital stations first. I watched from a shelter as pieces of metal rained down on our cities. Each piece was someone's home, someone's workplace, someone's life. My father was on one of those stations. Sumi's hands moved as she spoke, as if she was still reaching for things long gone. They gave us 72 hours to evacuate Earth. 72 hours for 8 billion people to leave the only home they'd ever known. We couldn't take everyone. We had to choose. I had to watch my grandmother say goodbye because there wasn't room for elderly people who might not survive the journey. She described the first decades after exile, ships breaking down in empty space, Life support systems failing. Children dying from diseases that could have been easily cured with proper medical facilities. Entire colonies freezing to death when their heat generators failed. Starvation, desperation, darkness. We were down to 2 million humans at one point, Sumi said. 2 million survivors from 8 billion. Every single one of us lost everyone we loved. Every single one of us wanted to die. But you didn't, Thexel said quietly. No, Sumi agreed. We didn't, because dying would mean the council won. It would mean their decision was correct. So we survived out of spite at first. Then we survived because we found reasons to live. We survived because we realized we were free. Velthar shifted uncomfortably. We expected gratitude then. For freeing you. Sumi's laugh was cold and hard. Gratitude? Oh, I am grateful. You taught us that we couldn't depend on anyone but ourselves. You taught us that mercy from the powerful is a lie. You taught us that the only safety comes from strength. Every single advancement we made, every technological breakthrough, every expansion of human capability, we owe to you. You made us strong by trying to destroy us. She stood up slowly, and despite her age, there was strength in her movements. Thank you, Galactic Council. Thank you for casting us out. Thank you for teaching humanity the most important lesson. We're better off without you. The council members were led back to their shuttle in silence. But before they could leave, Captain Minho intercepted them. He was young compared to Sumi, probably only a few centuries old, and he commanded the human defense fleet. Before you go, Minho said, there's something else you should know. Come to the observation deck. They followed him to a large window that showed the stars. Minho touched a control panel and the view changed. A map appeared, showing the galaxy in 3 dimensions. Council space was marked in blue. It looked vast, covering millions of systems. Then Minho highlighted human space in red. The council delegation stared. The red area covered nearly half the galaxy. It stretched through regions marked as unexplored or uninhabitable on council maps. It included territory no one thought could support life. This can't be accurate, Velthar said weakly. It's perfectly accurate, Minho replied. Humans control, protect, or have treaties with species in all of these systems. While you stayed in your comfortable core worlds, we expanded everywhere else. The outer rim, the dark zones, the void between spiral arms, all of it is inhabited now, by us and by those who chose to join us. That's more territory than the entire council, someone whispered. Yes, Minho agreed. We didn't ask your permission. We didn't need it. We've been building our civilization for 800,000 years while you barely noticed we existed. Velthar's scales had turned almost white. The exploration missions. Dozens of council ships went to those regions and never returned. What happened to them? Minho's expression didn't change. They found us. Some attacked immediately, following old council orders to eliminate humans on sight. Those ships were destroyed. Others came in peace or surrendered when they realized they were outmatched. Those ships and crews were offered a choice, return to council space or join us. And? Velthar demanded. Most chose to stay. Human space offers what council space doesn't. Freedom, opportunity, real representation. Why would they return to a system where they had no voice? The truth of it settled on the council members like a heavy weight. The humans hadn't come to rejoin the council. They had come to announce their presence. They were here not as supplicants but as equals, or perhaps as something more. This was never about asking permission to return, Thexel said, understanding finally clicking into place. No, Minho confirmed. This was a courtesy, a notification that we exist, we're powerful, and we're not going away. What happens next depends entirely on the council's choices. As the council delegation returned to their station, Velthar realized the full scope of their mistake. They hadn't exiled humanity 800,000 years ago. They had created an empire in the darkness, an empire that had been watching them, surrounding them, waiting, and now that empire had decided to make itself known. The emergency council session lasted 3 days. Representatives from every member species argued about what to do with the human situation. Fear filled the chamber. Some wanted to declare war immediately. Others wanted to negotiate. A few simply wanted to pretend none of this was happening. During the second day, reports began arriving from Council intelligence services. The news was worse than anyone imagined. Commander Wu Jin, leader of human military strategy, presented his findings to a shocked audience. We've traced the missing council expeditions. Wu Jin said calmly. Over the past 100,000 years, 417 council ships entered what you called the dead zones. None returned. You assumed they were lost to natural hazards or equipment failure. He displayed images of those ships. They weren't destroyed. They were thriving. Each one had been integrated into human society. Their crews now lived on human worlds. Their children had become part of human civilization. What did you do to them? Velcron demanded. Did you take them prisoner? We offered them something better, Wu Jin replied. Freedom. Every crew was given a choice. Return to council space with full honor or stay with us. 97% chose to stay. That's impossible. You must have brainwashed them. Wu Jin's smile was thin. We didn't need to. We simply showed them how we lived. Many of those ships came from species the council treats as second-class citizens. Species with no voting rights, species forced to pay tribute. Species whose complaints are ignored. We gave them what the council never did. Equality. A new human voice joined the discussion. Research Officer Hana stepped forward with data tablets in her hands. She was younger than most humans present, barely 200 years old, but she spoke with absolute confidence. Let me show you something, Hana said. She activated a hologram that showed two planets side by side. This is Keller 3, a council protectorate world. Population 5 billion. Average lifespan of the native species is 60 years. Infant mortality rate is 12%. 40% of the population lives in poverty. Crime rates are high. Technological development has been stagnant for 10,000 years. The image shifted to another planet. This is Keller 7 in human space. Same species, same culture originally. Population 7 billion. Average lifespan is 300 years and climbing. Infant mortality is 0.1%. Poverty rate is less than 1%. Crime is almost non-existent. Their technology has advanced more in the last 1,000 years than in the previous 100,000. You're lying, someone accused. We're not, Hana said simply. These numbers are verified. Want to know the difference? On Keller 7, the people govern themselves. They have full access to human technology and education. They're treated as equals, not subjects. On Keller 3, they follow council rules and beg for scraps of outdated technology. She brought up more comparisons. World after world, species after species. The pattern was clear and undeniable. Life under human governance was dramatically better than life under council control. You rule them, Velthar insisted. You just hide it better. We don't rule anyone, Wu Jin corrected. That's what you don't understand. The Human Federation isn't an empire. It's a coalition. Every species has equal voting power. Every world governs itself. We share technology freely. We protect each other's interests. No one species is more important than another. Then what do humans get out of it? Asked a practical-minded counselor. Peace, Wu Jin said. Security, knowledge, friendship. The things that actually matter. We learned something during our exile that the council never understood. Real strength comes from cooperation, not domination. The chamber erupted in arguments. But those arguments stopped when Ambassador Hyunwoo stood up and raised his hand for silence. The council seems to believe we've come to negotiate, Hyunwoo said. His voice carried clearly through the room despite not being loud. Let me be clear about our position. We haven't come to ask for our seat back. We've come to tell you that the Galactic Council as it currently exists is finished. The chamber went silent. Even breathing seemed to stop. We're not declaring war, Hyunwoo continued. We're simply stating a fact. Your member species are already communicating with us in secret. They're asking about joining the Human Federation. They're asking if they can have what other species have. Real representation, real freedom, real opportunity to grow. He walked to the center of the room, looking at each council member in turn. In the next year, approximately 60% of your member species will formally request to leave the council and join us. They're tired of being controlled. They're tired of artificial limits on their development. They're tired of watching humans and their allies thrive while they stagnate. You're stealing our members, Velthar hissed. We're offering them a better option, Hyunwoo corrected. That's not theft. That's competition. And you're losing because your system is inferior. Wu Jin stepped forward again. We're offering the council a choice. You can dissolve peacefully and join the Federation as equal members. Your species will be welcomed with full rights and benefits. Or you can maintain the council as a separate entity, but you'll do so with a fraction of your current membership and influence. Those are your options. And if we choose war, Felkrun challenged, You won't, Wu Jin said with certainty. Because your military leaders aren't stupid. They've analyzed our capabilities. They've seen our demonstrations. They know that any conflict would end in your complete defeat. More importantly, your own fleets would refuse to fight. Half your military personnel have family on worlds already negotiating to join us. A counselor from a small species stood up hesitantly. If we join this federation, what happens to our culture? Our identity? Nothing, Hyunwoo assured him. You keep everything that makes you unique. The Federation doesn't seek uniformity. We celebrate diversity. We believe every species and culture makes the galaxy richer. The only thing you give up is the ability to dominate others. If your species can accept being equals rather than superiors or subjects, you're welcome. Another counselor spoke up. And if we choose to remain independent? Outside both the council and your federation? That's acceptable too, Hyunwoo said. We're not forcing anyone. If your species wants to chart its own path, we respect that. We'll still offer trade and diplomatic relations. The only unacceptable option is trying to maintain the current council system of control and exploitation. Hana brought up a final image. It showed a human child and an alien child from a species once enslaved by council policies. They were playing together, laughing, learning together in a school that taught them both their histories and their possibilities. This is what we're building, Hana said. A galaxy where no one is cast out, where no one is considered inferior, where every species has the chance to reach its full potential. The council can be part of that future, or it can be a relic of the past. Choose. 3 months after the human ultimatum, the Galactic Council was falling apart. Every day brought new announcements. Another species requesting to leave, another world declaring independence, another fleet refusing to enforce council authority. Velthar watched his empire crumble from his office overlooking the council chambers. His reflection in the window showed how much he had aged in these few months. His scales had lost their shine. His eyes held no confidence anymore. The first major defection came from the Kellan species, one of the council's oldest members. Their representative stood before the council and delivered a formal declaration. The Kellan people have voted. We will join the Human Federation. We thank the council for centuries of governance, but we choose a different path now. Velthar tried to respond with authority. The council does not recognize this decision. You cannot simply leave. We already have, the Kellan representative said calmly. Our fleets have repositioned to human space. Our worlds now fly Federation colors. If you try to stop us, you'll be starting a war with humanity. Do you really want that? The council had no answer. Within a week, 15 more species followed the Kellan example. Then 30, then 50. Each departure weakened the council further. Tax revenues dropped. Military forces shrank as entire fleets transferred their loyalty. Trade routes shifted toward human space. The council tried everything to stop the bleeding. They offered reforms. They promised greater representation. They threatened economic sanctions against species that left. Nothing worked. The momentum was unstoppable. Thexil approached Velthar one evening after another devastating session. The old insect looked tired, his movement slower than usual. I tried to warn you, Thexil said. 800,000 years ago I said exile was a mistake. I said we should have found another way. You said we should have destroyed them, Velthar replied bitterly. Yes, I did, but only because I knew half measures wouldn't work. You can't just wound a species like humanity and expect them to die quietly. They were always survivors. We should have recognized that strength and worked with them. Instead, we created an enemy. They're not our enemy, Velthar said quietly. That's what makes this worse. If they were attacking us, destroying us, we could fight back. We could be victims. But they're not doing that. They're just ignoring us. Building something better while we fall apart. The council tried one final strategy. Military force. Admiral Velkron ordered fleets to blockade species attempting to defect. But when the fleets arrived at their positions, something unexpected happened. The crews refused to fire. We won't attack civilians trying to leave, one captain announced over open channels. We won't start a war we can't win. The council's authority over us is finished. Then those fleets joined the Federation too. Officers and soldiers who had served the council for generations simply walked away. They took their ships and their loyalty to human space. Velthar called for an emergency meeting with Ambassador Hyunwoo. They met in a neutral station alone except for a few guards. The proud council leader looked broken as he faced the human. Why aren't you gloating? Velthar asked. You've won. The council is destroyed. You could demand anything from us now. Why aren't you taking revenge? Hyunwoo's expression was unreadable. Revenge for what? For the exile. For 800,000 years of suffering. For the billions of humans who died because of what we did. Hyunwoo was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his words were measured and careful. Do you want the truth? We don't think about you enough to hate you. The exile shaped us, yes. It made us stronger. But holding on to hatred for something that happened so long ago, that would only hurt us. That's worse, Velthar said, his voice breaking. I could handle your hate. Hate means we mattered, but we don't even matter enough for you to care. You mattered once, Hyunwoo acknowledged. Your decision to exile us changed the course of galactic history, but that was your moment of significance. Everything after that has been about what we became, not about what you did to us. Velthar slumped in his chair. So we're irrelevant to humanity? Yes, but you don't have to be irrelevant to the galaxy. You can still choose to be part of something better. A new voice interrupted them. A woman named Jiwon entered the room. She was from a species that had been under council control for thousands of years. Her people had been among the first to join the Human Federation. I was asked to speak to you, Jiwon said to Velthar, to help you understand what you're choosing between. She sat down and began describing her life. Under council rule, my species was classified as developing. That meant we got limited technology, limited education, limited everything. We were told it was for our own good, that we weren't ready for more. I spent 60 years of my life believing I was inferior because that's what the council taught us. Then human ships arrived at our world. They didn't conquer us. They didn't demand anything. They just offered knowledge, technology, partnership. They treated us like equals from the first moment. Do you know what that feels like? After generations of being told you're lesser, to meet someone who sees your potential? Jiwon's eyes held both sadness and joy. My children are studying quantum physics now. My youngest daughter just helped design a new kind of engine. My people have a seat in the Federation Council, with the same voting power as humanity itself. We've grown more in 50 years with them than in 5,000 years with you. We gave you stability. Velthar protested weakly. Protection, order. You gave us a cage, Jiwon corrected. A comfortable cage, maybe, but still a cage. Humans gave us wings. She stood to leave, then turned back one final time. The sad thing is, you could have done this too. You could have helped species grow instead of controlling them. You could have built something beautiful, but you were too afraid of losing power, and now you've lost it anyway. After she left, Velthar and Hyunwoo sat in silence. Finally, the council leader spoke. What happens to us now? To the species that remain with the council? That's your choice, Hyunwoo said. You can maintain the council with whoever stays. You can govern yourselves however you want. We won't interfere. Or you can dissolve the council entirely and join the Federation. Either way, the galaxy is moving forward, with you or without you. And if we stay separate, then you'll be neighbors. We'll trade with you, talk to you, treat you with respect. But you'll be outside the mainstream of galactic civilization. You'll watch everyone else progress while you stay the same. Eventually, even your remaining members will leave one by one until you're alone. Velthar closed his eyes. The weight of 800,000 years of history pressed down on him. One decision so long ago had led to this moment. One act of fear and pride had created the very thing they feared most, a power greater than their own. We should have helped you instead of hurting you, Velthar whispered. Yes, Hyunwoo agreed. You should have, but you didn't. And now we all have to live with the consequences. 5 years had passed since the humans announced their presence. The galaxy was transformed. The old council chambers had been renamed Unity Hall, and its function had changed completely. Where once a few powerful species made decisions for everyone, now hundreds of species met as equals. Ambassador Hyunwoo walked through Unity Hall on his way to the morning session. Everywhere he looked, he saw species working together. A Kellen engineer discussed propulsion systems with a human physicist. A group of former council subjects laughed together over breakfast. Children from a dozen different worlds played in the gardens outside. The final statistics had come in last month. 78% of former council species had joined the Human Federation. Another 15% formed their own independent alliances, friendly but separate. Only 7% remained with what was now called the Legacy Council. The Legacy Council still existed, much smaller and quieter. They governed themselves in their own region of space, maintaining their old traditions and hierarchies. The Federation left them alone. There was no point in forcing change on those who didn't want it. Velthar lived in one of those legacy council worlds now. He had resigned as council leader after the mass defections. No one forced him out. He simply couldn't lead anymore. The weight of failure was too heavy. Sometimes Hyunwoo received messages from him, questions about how things worked in the Federation. The old leader seemed to be learning slowly. That cooperation was stronger than control. Historian Nari had become the director of the Museum of Exile, built on a neutral world between Federation and Legacy Council space. The museum preserved the complete history of humanity's 800,000-year journey. Nothing was hidden. The suffering, the losses, the near extinction, all of it was documented. But the museum also showed what came after. The slow rebuilding. The first successful colony. The moment when humans stopped just surviving and started thriving. The alliances with other exiled species. The steady growth across the stars. The transformation from victims to builders. School groups from every species visited the museum. Human children learned about their people's darkest time. Other species learned what desperation and determination could create. The museum's message was clear. Exile had been wrong, but humanity chose to grow from it rather than be destroyed by it. Nari gave tours sometimes. When she wasn't working on her endless documentation projects, she told students about Elder Sumi and Captain Do-hyun and all the others who kept humanity alive when death seemed certain. She made sure no one forgot the price of the Council's fear. "Why don't you hate them?" a young student asked during one tour. "The Council hurt you so badly. Why help them now?" Nari smiled at the question. "Because hate is heavy to carry. It slows you down. We needed to be fast and adaptable to survive. Hate would have killed us as surely as any weapon, so we let it go and focused on building something better. The Federation itself was a marvel of cooperation. Every member species maintained its own culture, government, and identity. But they shared technology freely, defended each other absolutely, and made decisions together. The Federation Council had no permanent leaders. Leadership rotated among species every 5 years. Even humans took their turn as equals, not masters. Technology had exploded across Federation space. When hundreds of species shared knowledge instead of hoarding it, breakthroughs came constantly. Medicine advanced. Ships improved. Communication became instant across thousands of light years. Quality of life rose for everyone. Some species adapted quickly to this new freedom. Others struggled. Generations under Council control had taught them to wait for orders, to fear innovation, to accept limits. The Federation established programs to help these species rediscover their potential. Humans worked alongside them, teachers and students in turn. Captain Minho commanded the Federation Defense Fleet now. It was the largest military force in galactic history, but it hadn't fired a shot in anger since its formation. Just the existence of such power, united and committed to mutual protection, prevented conflict. No one wanted to face a galaxy that stood together. Dr. Yoonji ran the Federation Science Council, coordinating research across thousands of worlds. Her teams had made discoveries that Council scientists called impossible. They had mapped 14 new dimensions, learned to communicate with quantum entities, and discovered ways to generate energy from the fabric of space itself. Engineer Tae-hyun taught at the Federation Academy, training young engineers from every species. His students learned that technology wasn't about domination or control. It was about working with the universe's natural laws to create harmony and efficiency. His most famous lesson was simple. Everything wants to work correctly. Your job is just to help it. Philosopher Yuna wrote books that became required reading across the Federation. Her most popular work was titled The Gift of Exile, and it examined how hardship could transform individuals and entire civilizations. She didn't romanticize suffering, but she showed how humans had chosen to learn and grow rather than become bitter and vengeful. The Legacy Council sent an official apology to humanity 6 months ago. It was formal and carefully worded, written by lawyers and diplomats. They acknowledged that the exile had been wrong. They expressed regret for the suffering caused. They requested forgiveness. Hyunwoo read the apology in his office, then filed it away. Some members of the Federation wanted him to respond publicly, to accept or reject it dramatically, but he did neither. He simply sent a brief private message to the Legacy Council leadership. "We acknowledge your apology. We hope you build a better future for your people. The past is finished. Focus on tomorrow, that was all. No grand gestures. No demands for further penance. Just a simple acknowledgement that everyone needed to move forward. Today's session in Unity Hall was about expansion. New species wanted to join the Federation. Explorers had found intelligent life in previously unknown regions. Questions needed answering about how to welcome them, how to share resources, how to maintain balance while growing. Hyunwoo took his seat among the other representatives. A young human woman named Bora sat next to him, preparing for her first session as Earth's junior ambassador. She was nervous, only 80 years old, still learning. Is it always this busy? Bora whispered always, Hyunwoo replied with a smile. That's the nature of growth. There's always something new to address, someone new to welcome, some problem to solve together. It never stops. Doesn't that exhaust you? Sometimes, Hyunwoo admitted. But it's better than the alternative. Better than stagnation. Better than the silence of the exile years. This noise, this chaos, this constant change. This is life. This is what we fought to create. The session began. Representatives from 200 species discussed trade routes, research initiatives, cultural exchanges, and defense coordination. They argued sometimes, disagreed often, but always talked through their differences. No one imposed their will. No one demanded obedience. They worked together because they all remembered what happened when species stood alone. After the session, Hyunwoo walked to the gardens. He often came here to think. Among the flowers and trees from 100 worlds, he found peace. An old man was already there, sitting on a bench. Hyunwoo recognized him. Exiled, the council member who had warned against exile so long ago. May I join you? Hyunwoo asked. Please, Exiled said. His mandibles moved slowly. He was incredibly old now, even by his species standards. I come here often. It helps me remember what? That I was wrong about many things. Exiled said. I thought exile was a mistake because you should have been destroyed. I was right that exile was a mistake, but wrong about the reason. You shouldn't have been cast out because you deserved to be heard. Your ideas were frightening to us, but they were right. We weren't perfect then, Hyunwoo said. We're not perfect now, but we try to do better. That's all anyone can do. Exiled stood slowly. I won't live much longer. My time is nearly done, but I'm glad I lived to see this. To see what the galaxy could be when fear doesn't rule. Tell your people something for me. Of course, tell them that one old fool learned his lesson. Tell them that if I could go back 800,000 years, I would have stood with them instead of against them. Tell them, I'm sorry. Hyunwoo watched the old being walk away, bent with age and regret. The apology meant more than the official one from the council. This was personal, genuine, from someone who had actually been there. As evening came to Unity Hall, Hyunwoo stood at a window watching the stars. Somewhere out there, human colonies thrived on thousands of worlds. Somewhere out there, species once enslaved now governed themselves. Somewhere out there, children of every imaginable form played together, learned together, grew up knowing they were equals. The exile had been meant to destroy humanity. Instead, it had created something the Council never imagined. A galaxy where everyone could flourish together, where strength came from cooperation, where diversity was celebrated, and where no one needed to be cast out for being different. 800,000 years of suffering had bought this moment. 800,000 years of exile had created this future. And looking at what had been built from that pain, Hyunwoo understood something profound. The Council had made humanity stronger through cruelty. Humanity made the galaxy better through kindness.